it's more of a side effect, right? Like I used to have it as like a goal, I guess, or happiness for me was a destination that I was trying to get to. Well, I just like, and I think a lot of us do that, right? Like a lot of us are like, if you ask a person, what's one of the biggest things you want to get out of life? And you can ask it really to anybody, kids, adults, and they'll say, I just want to be happy. Nothing else, nothing big. I just want to be happy. You're listening to Little Pricks Podcast. We're so happy you're here. Get comfortable and enjoy the episode. Welcome back, everybody, to Little Pricks Podcast. We are so excited to have you here. My name is Devon.
My name is Fareed, and we're here to talk about why you're not happy.
Oh, my goodness. Jumping right into it, man.
Yes, it's an awesome topic.
Dude, it's going to be a great topic. I'm super excited about it. We've been sitting here making our notes, kind of chatting back and forth. But before we do that, Fareed, what has happened since the last time we recorded an episode? My goodness.
You know what? I've been chasing my happy.
Yeah.
And in that process, injuries happen.
Yeah, fair.
I feel like lately every episode we're like, oh, how'd you hurt yourself this time?
Yeah.
I conquered my fear of motorcycle riding
Yeah.
on roads, on actual roads with people, right?
Good on you.
I was riding what you wouldn't call a starter bike.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Most people tell you like a 250 is great. Get on a 250cc. It's a small, moderate bike, great for in town. 1200.
Yeah, right. Yeah, not necessarily the best starter bike, but
Not a great
I did
starter
see
bike.
the pictures and I was like, that was ballsy.
Weighs about 600 pounds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's heavy.
For those of you that don't know much about riding motorcycles, you're basically riding a very, very, very heavy, high-powered bicycle.
Yeah.
Right? And so you have to keep that thing up. But they're very heavy. And so I did great for the most part, right? I only stalled the bike once. Like just pulling out of the parking lot, not a big deal.
Yeah.
But I was pulling out of a parking lot on a downhill.
Yeah.
And a car decides to cut in front of me.
Oh, of course.
Yep. I had to slam on the brakes. And of course, I was turning. So bikes don't like to be stopped while the wheel is not straight forward. Or,
Right.
You know, with the handlebar. So if you're curved, that bike goes down.
Yeah. Well, especially when it weighs 600 pounds.
Oh, yeah. That thing goes down. And I was not going to drop that bike. So I manhandled that thing in ways that my wrist clearly did not enjoy.
Yeah.
And I saved the bike, but now I have an injured wrist.
I got a bum wrist.
Yep.
So, and what else has happened since we have recorded last is we have gained some traction, my friend.
We have.
We had, a decent little following before, maybe 50 followers, or we were short of 50 on YouTube and like maybe 60 on Instagram. We now have over 5,000 followers on Instagram.
Thanks to you guys.
Thanks to you guys. And we're about to break 500 today on
YouTube.
YouTube. So thank you guys so much. We're always so thankful. We were thankful when we had 60 followers, when we had 40, 50 followers. We're definitely thankful now. So excited to share this podcast with you guys. So excited to be a part of whatever you're doing. I don't know if you listen to us.
Thanks for letting us into your drive,
Yeah.
into your home,
Yeah.
into your travel plans.
Your workout,
Thank you.
into your safe space even.
Yep.
Maybe we come into a place where you are sitting alone and kind of having to work out some things and face your demons. And if we are part of that journey for you, bravo. We're happy to be there for
So
you.
thank you for allowing us into your lives.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Let's jump into the topic, man. Yeah.
Why aren't you happy?
Yeah. Well, it's there's a lot under that question, right?
Yes.
Like there's a lot under the question of why aren't you happy? And I think so many things to unpack here. I think
Let's define it. Define the issue.
Let's define happiness. What is happiness for
So
you?
we're actually going to go ahead and let the dictionary
Right.
tell us what is happy.
Right. Let's be cut and dry about
Yep,
it.
gotta
Just for
be.
defining it.
Happy, feeling or showing pleasure or contentment. Having a sense of confidence in or satisfaction with a person, arrangement, or situation. Right? So that is the actual definition of happy.
Okay.
And I would say that people kind of overinflate happy.
How so?
So happy has a stem of contentment or pleasure,
Right.
right? And contentment is a completely different word.
See, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, like that definition kind of is off of what I thought it was going to say, probably because even I have some preconceived notions about what happy really means.
Yes, or people will just misunderstand what happy is or feels like.
Yeah.
So contentment is what my argument will always be, is that you should strive for contentness, not for happiness.
Sure.
Contentness is satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
You are satisfied with the current state of things.
Yeah, exactly. And I think our last episode kind of touched base on that, with it being in that space and being okay with existing in that space of contentment and peace.
Yeah, and people also confound joy, right? Joy with being happy.
Yeah.
So if we define joy, right? A feeling of great pleasure and happiness. And it's funny because like the word happy just pops up so often.
It does. And maybe that's part of the confusion, right? Like maybe part of the confusion with happiness, what it is, and everything like that is because of the fact that it kind of is just used interchangeably in places where maybe it should not be used interchangeably. You
Absolutely.
know?
And so we now have defined happiness. What is happy? And we can now focus on the fact that it is contentment or satisfaction with your situation of some sort.
Do you feel like you misconstrued any, like based on that definition? Because I kind of feel like based on that definition, I've kind of mistaken happiness for being a state of not feeling anything else negative or anything but that joy, that overwhelming joy or that dopamine hit. Like even just now as we're recording, I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not positive exactly.
I feel I've had a pretty good grasp on happy.
Yeah.
Because this was beaten into me a while back ago.
Okay.
Right. I completely want to chase contentment. And how do I chase contentment? It is, am I happy with the situations that I have created for myself?
Wow.
And that's
Sure.
ultimately what I seek.
Yeah.
Is, you may not be in the best situation, but you created it, and are you okay living with that? Are you okay to sleep in the bed you've made?
That's what I was really just going to say. You made your bed. Are you okay with laying in it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the question then is brought up, is it a mindset? Is it a state of being? Is it a side effect of being content? And it is.
Yeah. For me, like personally, when I was making those notes, I said, it's more of a side effect, right? Like I used to have it as like a goal, I guess, or happiness for me was a destination that I was trying to get to. Well, I just like, and I think a lot of us do that, right? Like a lot of us are like, if you ask a person, what's one of the biggest things you want to get out of life? And you can ask it really to anybody, kids, adults, and they'll say, I just want to be happy. Nothing else, nothing big. I just want to be happy. And I think I chased that for a long time. And I realized that, it's almost kind of self-defeating, right? Because in the pursuit of that goal of me trying to be happy, I negated the opportunity or the space for me to feel basically anything else. Like it didn't allow me to make room in my emotional cup in my day-to-day life for anything else, the mundane, the sadness, the loneliness, the anything else, or even just contentment, like we've talked about. Like it only allowed for those super high highs. And when I did that, and when you like realize you spend most of your other time in that mundane and not in that big dopamine hit of happiness, like it makes you feel down. It makes you feel sad,
So I think that the reason we chase happy so aggressively is because we're being conditioned for it in so many ways, right?
Oh, of course.
We self-condition because it's an easy thing to say, right? Happy.
Well, and again, it's used everywhere, right? Even as we're sitting here on the internet saying, hey, what is happiness? Like you see it pop up in all kinds of different definitions.
But I mean, the concept of happy, the way it's sold to you, is so simple seeming, right?
Right.
You're told that it's just happy. You should just be happy.
Right.
Why aren't you happy?
Right.
Right. And it becomes this thing of like, well, why am I not happy? It's just being happy. It's so easy. Why not? Right.
Yeah.
And it kind of devalues what it actually is.
Yeah.
Whereas, at least in my strong opinion, happiness is a state.
Yeah.
And it's a state that you come in and out of.
Yeah.
But to be happy, you have to have the gambit of other emotions.
Sure, absolutely.
So if you're sitting there only chasing happy and you're almost like just completely obsessed with getting
with
out of your
just happy,
of just
right?
being happy, but getting out of your other states of being, right? Being sad,
Yeah.
being disappointed,
Yeah.
being distressed.
Literally all those other things, right? And like it devalues all those other things. Like there is a special place for enjoying and being content. And even like we talked about in the last episode, just existing in that place of peace and not mistaking it for some like boredom or some kind of like falling out of love or a loss of passion. Like, no, man, when you're only chasing that goal or that state of happiness, like you take away all the pleasure that can come from existing in just all of the other moments and all of the other emotions that come with life, you know?
So if we want to set a baseline, or if we want to set a nugget for this episode,
Yeah.
right? If you want just something to take away from this, real easy, real clean, just like happy is an easy catch line.
Yeah.
If you become content, happiness comes.
Yeah. Happiness follows for sure.
So find contentment. Seek
Yeah.
out contentment. Make sure you are comfortable with the things that you are doing
Yep.
and that you can stand behind them.
Yeah, and just overall, at the end of the day, when the sum of all of the things of your life come to it, are you satisfied or not?
And in that satisfaction,
Yeah.
you will find your moments of happiness.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good.
That is your nugget,
Yep.
right?
No doubt.
But the other side of that coin
Yeah.
is you have to be comfortable with experiencing all the emotions. And I would say even seeking the beauty or the joy in all those emotions. Like, I don't understand how people will have these moments of sadness, right? And they want to run away from that sadness so quickly.
Well, it's unpleasurable, man. It's natural for us to want to run away from a hot stove, to get away from things that aren't comfortable.
But it's not a hot stove, right? It is unpleasant, right?
Yeah.
It is unpleasant, but it is what gives happiness its sweetness.
That part is true, yes.
It is the other side of things. But to get to that sweetness,
Yeah.
you have to endure that sadness, that discomfort, and you have to process it.
Yeah, no,
Because
absolutely.
Only before you sit there and truly understand and can almost, I want to say almost enjoy those feelings, because it's a different thing.
Yeah.
You can respect those feelings for what they represent and what they are.
Yeah.
Right? You can be crying and disappointed and sad over a lost lover.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But the other side of that coin is, how beautiful is it you get to mourn a loss?
Yeah. And that you had that experience. And then drawing your conclusions and those lessons from that loss lead you into your next partnership that ends up being better than ever before. Best
Sure.
relationship you've ever had, you know?
And
so like,
I would stop you right before you get to that next partner, right?
Yeah.
Just drawing your own conclusions and bringing yourself back to contentness, because you know what? You can
Yeah.
come to rest that I did what I could. Things worked out the way they did.
yeah, I'm better for it.
I'm so grateful I got to experience that.
Yeah, that's cool.
You know, so
sure.
that's what I say. Like, you can't rush out of all the other emotions just to seek happy.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is one of the biggest distortions in this society we have created.
Absolutely, man. And even in my own experience, you know, I'll admit that. I've done that. And it wasn't until I kind of, you know, changed my perspective on things or allowed myself space to feel all of the other things in between whatever exists in the mundane and the day-to-day and happy, you know?
God, it becomes almost frustrating how much we hear the word happy and
Yeah.
don't understand it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that jumps next to another kind of little separate subject, but it's such a heavy one, right? It's
Sure,
that
go ahead,
dopamine
yeah.
fixing we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this, we have conditioned ourselves. We want that dopamine. We want that hit.
Like in what way? Like how do we do that, do you think?
So it comes in various ways. You can either dopamine fix yourself, where you do certain things that just give you that initial pleasure, or you can just enjoy what society kind of force feeds you, right? And I'll give you an example.
Yeah, I was going to say, what do you got?
When you advertise,
Okay.
we are advertised to constantly, right?
Oh, for sure.
They say sex sells. What about sex is selling you? It's that dopamine hit of seeing something sexual.
Yeah.
Because it elicits emotions and desires inside of you.
Yeah.
The idea of seeing something sexual isn't pleasurable in and of itself, is that you transcode it for yourself and go, that would be awesome.
Yeah. Or even, I guess, new cars even. New cars,
I
new
would say
house,
buying things.
buying things
right?
in general. Yeah.
We call it retail therapy for a reason.
Hey, and, no shame. Listen,
It's my specialty,
I was
by the
going
way.
to say that's
I
probably
studied
a bigger
that.
thing on you, but even me lately, I've been thinking about buying a new truck, so I'll take that one on the chin. But it is retail therapy is so nice.
Well, I love buying things. Yes, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, but like I studied retail.
Yeah.
That is my degree.
Yeah.
The science of how people interact with purchasing, marketing, and attaining.
Well, and
goods.
speaking of that, this is a good place in the podcast to mention our very gracious sponsor of the episode, Vibrance Automotive on 3100 North Stone.
For now,
Yeah.
we are moving.
Very
Yes.
well.
Vibrance Automotive. For all of your automotive needs, please come talk to me. I will fix your car and talk about the Little Prigs podcast stuff.
Absolutely. So thank you, Vibrance Automotive, for that.
Of course. We love the Little Prigs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I studied retail, and so this is a lot of the stuff that we go through, right? It's how do we create a dopamine cycle for a customer to constantly to kind of come back for it, right?
Yeah.
We call it the retail experience.
Sure.
So that's why when you go into a retail store, it is the way it is. It is designed a certain way. When you go to, especially to a place that actually costs you money to purchase things, right? You'll see brighter colors. You'll see more light. You'll see depictions of people happy because of this brand, right? And every single one of those depicts or prepares you for a dopamine spike.
Okay.
And
yeah.
the more you
that's
get
true.
that,
That's true.
the more you get that, the more you want to be in there, right? Some of the best retail ones for it. Apple. You ever been into an Apple store and not been excited?
That is a whole different, that is an all new, unlike anything else experience for sure.
For every person that is obsessed with a new iPhone
Or Target.
or Target.
Oh God, when you walk in
Target.
Target, you should have seen me the first time I walked into Target. Oh my God.
I love Target.
I
And they've
love
done a
Target.
great job.
They've done such a good job. But yeah, okay. So that does make sense, right? Like we are constantly fed and engulfed in a society that trains us to look after, seek out those dopamine hits.
Yep. They want you to feel good because if you feel good, you spend more.
And those things aren't really sustainable, right? Like those things I think are what we often mistake for happiness. Like new car purchase or retail therapy or anything like that, and we use those things or we kind of try to seek those as an avenue to get this happiness, but they never last, right?
No,
you buy that new car, you drive it for even a month, you might get a month out of it, but then after that,
some are different than others.
and after that you kind of, it fades off,
Yes.
it fades off, and then you realize you have that big huge payment that maybe you shouldn't have taken out, and you're like, shoot.
Yes,
Absolutely.
You start to think and wonder to yourself, it's not as much fun now. Is this something I really wanted or needed, or did it just give me that fix? And the problem with dopamine fixing, especially when you do it in an unhealthy manner, is that you need a higher level each time. You need something a bit more extreme, a bit more
That
pleasant.
threshold gets set higher and higher and higher. I have a good truck, but I need the one with the turbo on it.
You're going through it right now, right? And actually, I would say even retail employees struggle through this one quite a bit, right?
Okay.
So, like, I can't imagine being an Apple employee,
Yeah.
right? Because you're an Apple employee. You're
gosh.
like, you walk into the Apple store the first time, it's amazing.
Yeah.
You walk into the Apple store the second time, it's pretty cool. You walk into the Apple store the third time, okay, it's still fun. It's a nice place. The fourth time, it's the Apple store. The fifth time, it's not doing it for me anymore. Mm-hmm. It's just not getting me that excitement I used to get, right?
Right.
That's part of the reason a lot of people say, if you love something, don't try to work and make money out of it because it'll kill your soul.
Take the joy
It'll
from it,
take the joy from it.
No doubt. Okay.
And so that dopamine fixing, it can be done in a lot of unhealthy ways. That the same reason you're scrolling all day on your phone.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Gosh, I've done that plenty.
Thanks.
Yeah, no worries.
Thanks, buddy. So if you're scrolling mindlessly, it's because you're refilling that dopamine hit.
Yeah.
And it's always mindless because you never get enough after a while.
Yeah.
And so you do need to actively work on dropping that artificial dopamine fix.
No doubt.
Which actually I think is a great thing to touch on because
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons people aren't happy
Yeah.
or content, or because you're confounding those dopamine fixings with that's the only time I'm happy.
Yeah.
That's the only time that I feel okay. And for a lot of people confound happiness with safe or stability.
Okay.
And that's the complete opposite, really.
So then how do we go about that, right? Like we say, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to control these dopamine hits, you need to limit these, but like, how?
Okay.
You know, like for me personally, I get away from all of it. I go out and I camp, I get in the middle of nowhere, and I just sit with myself because to me, that's my contentness. That's my overall satisfaction with just existing. When you are out in the middle of nowhere, no cell phone service, like have emergency ways. I'm not recommending you go out in the middle of nature and not go prepared and have no cell phone service. Like
be safe.
Have emergency services if you need it. But like that's my content. That's my overall satisfaction. That's where I can go and not have all that noise. I don't need all that dopamine hit, and I can just exist and be so happy.
So what you're doing is dopamine fasting.
Okay, I've never heard that concept. That's cool.
So yeah, so what basically you have to do to find the healthy ways of balancing those dopamine hits.
Okay.
It's realizing, okay, I'm overstimulated in this regard. I'm using too much of technology. I'm using too much of like driving my fast car. I'm using too much of all these things, right?
Sure. All right.
And you have to deprive yourself of them. And I would say that going camping is a fantastic one, right?
Reading a book, maybe. A lot of people like reading books.
You can, but anything can be a source of dopamine fix, right? It can be overreading. It's anything in excess. You can do anything in excess.
I guess that kind of that depends on how you feel or how you do things as a person, I guess.
Believe it or not, it's like it doesn't have to just be technology based to be overusable. Right? People think it's just your phone, so it's awful. You can't just use your phone. You can overread. You can overindulge in camping. You can overdo anything and get that fix. It's about dealing with it in a balanced and healthy manner.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, man. So like, okay, let's take a pause here, and we're saying, hey, these are the things that maybe you should do. You should like limit these dopamine hits. You should limit all these things, your stimulation, and like maybe let's touch base on how to do that. And like for me personally, it's camping. I like to go camping. I like to disconnect. I like to go places where you don't have service, you don't have anything but just yourself. Yeah, be safe for sure. I'm not saying go out in the middle of nowhere that you've never been before with no preparation and get no service to have peace and to be content. But for me, that's how it is, you know, like, and obviously I have ways to reach emergency services, but like
you bike ride, you camp.
Yeah, I mountain bike, I get out in nature. And that's just for like me personally. I just like the disconnect of just existing. Like that's just me out in nature with no stimulation. I just exist.
To be clear, those are still hits of dopamine, but they're more subtle, right? Like, you know, when you're out camping, you go from just being happy, like that extreme over joyous happy, to content in your surroundings.
So it's a low energy happy. So this is a good spot. I want to add in this because it comes from that book that I recently finished, Permission to Feel. And in that book, on the back page, and I'll take a picture of it and I'll put it in the video here, very, 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 very good tool to use to kind of assess your emotional state. And so camping would be happy, but low energy happy. You know, so you're more of like in the blue quadrant, I think it would be. Because you're not high energy happy, you're low energy happy. And that's like where you use words like contentness or, you know, content, what we've been talking about before. But that's just me. Camping, riding mountain bikes, nature, I would say, is how I do that.
I like to look at dopamine like sugar.
Because,
right, you need
that's
sugar.
Actually probably scientifically true.
Yeah, you need sugar, right? It's what your brain runs on. But you don't need to have all the sugar, right? You need to have a healthy amount of sugar.
Right.
To run things. And like I was telling you earlier, that for me, I like to disconnect from things. I don't like to be on my phone swiping as much. I like to do things with intent. Okay. Right. So if I'm on my phone, I'm there for a reason. Don't scroll so much. You're limiting what you're doing, kind of a thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
An extreme form of it that I've taken, I've been doing it for like the last 8 months.
Yeah.
A complete like sexual stimulus fast.
Okay.
Right?
Like how so?
So I'm not allowing myself to look at those Victoria's Secret ads. There's no sex scenes on TV. There's no pornography. There's nothing.
Okay. Oh, you've stripped that all away completely?
It's all gone. There's nothing. The only...
Wow. You're so strong for that. Honestly, like I won't like take too much away from your point, but like, bravo, sir. I don't know how you do it, man. That's very admirable.
Well, I'll tell you how. That's a great point. I did it with my intentionality.
Okay.
I told myself that sex should be the sexual stimulus should be with humans, people,
okay. That's
with
fair.
people, right? And for me, I'm focusing on a partner, and I want that to be, I want that dopamine level to be highest with my partner.
With your partner. That makes sense, man. I can see what you mean by that. Okay.
Because I think that leads to a whole slew of discontentment with
That's
people,
fair.
right?
Yeah, okay.
Because you're
All right.
focusing your dopamine on the wrong places.
Well, that and you just have it so often, right? Like, okay, I see where you're going with that. So for me, camping, nature, for you, it's kind of like taking a break from indulging in all the other sources of dopamine except for where you want it.
Yes, I
and
focus
that,
it in certain
I would
places.
say for people who maybe earlier in the episode were asking, how in the freaking heck do I go about finding happiness? You're telling me all the ways that like, or the reasons I don't have it, or maybe why I'm struggling to find it. That's the way, you know?
Yeah.
Aim your direction of your dopamine hits and these things that maybe we do associate with happiness or things that are the side effects of happiness in the areas that you want them. Like, how much more amazing is it to exist and have all the conveniences of day-to-day life after you've spent a couple days in the woods without them?
Oh,
you know?
Yeah.
Take a break from it.
And
Or
I think one of the biggest things is chase contentment. Make sure that when you make decisions, make them intentional, right?
Okay.
I am doing these things so that I am satisfied with what I have done.
Yeah.
I have made choices that I can be happy with and grateful for.
yeah,
Happy was the wrong word. I threw it in because that's just, it's so ingrained in me
and
too.
it's so ingrained in
It's
us.
so
Like,
ingrained.
no harm.
I can be grateful for the choices I've made that produce
Yeah.
moments of happiness. I'm going to
Right.
flip that. is
And
what I'm trying to get
you find that and you're fasting for per se of dopamine hits, and I find it when I'm sitting in the middle of the woods with nothing else to do but to kind of reflect on my life and be like, wow,
That's the fasting.
I'm really grateful. I'm really
It's the same
happy
thing.
with everything. I'm really satisfied. I'm very content with my life right now. I'm sitting in the middle of the desert.
Gratitude.
For
That's
sure.
the next portion of it. It's
Yeah.
be grateful. Find your gratitude.
Right. No, absolutely.
If you
Absolutely.
can be grateful for the things that you have, the things that you've done, the people that are around you, the people that you've surrounded yourself with, which
Yeah.
I think just a small thing.
Sure.
You need to give yourself credit for the fact that you've managed to surround yourself with good people because you did it.
Yeah.
You surround yourself with the people you wanted, and that is a product of you.
Yeah.
So you should give yourselves credit for that one.
Absolutely,
I know it's a hard
guys.
one.
No, for sure. So another question that kind of like I'm thinking of and that I see here is like, do you feel like maybe we shame a little bit for
Yes.
not being happy? 'Cause
Yes.
like I saw that you added that in here and I'm like, dang, that's a good question. So now that we've kind of assessed why maybe we don't have happiness, why it's hard to find, what to do to help with that, do we shame each other?
Absolutely.
Like even if it's not intentional, right? Even if I don't, consciously say, oh, shame on you for not being happy. Do you feel like we do that in some subtle ways? And if we
Yes.
do,
If-
how?
If when you go to meet a new person,
Yeah.
you want to come off as a person that's happy and content with their life on
Dude,
social
that's
media,
so
you
true.
want to show yourself as like the most extravagant and everything's okay, and
Right.
that's how I have to show
Especially
myself.
social media. That's a good spot to touch base on. Like, we only put our best foot forward. I'm not going to make an Instagram post about the day where I felt down in the slumps and I didn't feel like doing anything and I just sat on my couch and rotted for the day. I'm not going to do that.
One of the funny things that I've had to like change my ideology on a little bit when I travel, and I travel more than I thought I did.
Yeah.
I'm shocked. I used to say like I like traveling, I don't do it much, and then like last year every other week, where are you?
Yeah.
I don't know how I got here,
Vegas,
man.
XYZ, other
I'm
place.
in Hawaii right now.
Yeah,
I'm in
Hawaii.
yeah. And I would try to be present, so I wouldn't take very many photos.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing really to do, but
It's good to
I
have
guess
photos.
I can see how it made you feel like you never traveled or you never
Yeah.
did anything when you never have any photos of
I
it.
completely forgot about. I've had trips where I look at my phone and I
Yeah.
see a photo from like the airport and then the airport when I came back.
Yeah.
Like nothing of the trip, right?
Okay.
So that was just kind of
Yeah.
a funny one.
No, for
But,
sure.
But
for sure.
like I booked my trip to Italy.
Yeah, dude, that's so cool. I have always wanted to go to Italy.
I'm gonna take photos.
Yeah.
I'll take photos.
You
yes.
should, man,
I said
for
I'd do
sure.
it. I booked my trip to Italy.
That's so cool, man.
It's gonna
Good
be a
for
cool
you.
one.
Good for
I'm
you.
gonna hopefully, God willing, right? As long as the store goes well with the transfer to the new store,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go see an F1 race live in Italy.
Oh god.
Woo!
That's so cool, man. That's so cool.
That's a dopamine hit.
Yeah, right.
No, but back to the point of
Make sure you duct tape your eyes shut when you get back to Tucson. Go on your dopamine fast.
you gotta dopamine fast everything.
Yeah.
Rewarding yourself with dopamine when you've done well.
So, okay, back to like kind of the original question, like, do you feel like we shame that? And even if we don't consciously or like actively with our words directly say shame on you,
we shame
we
each
do
other.
kind of at least in our society, like I can't speak for others, but here in the States, we definitely put our best foot forward. We're only posting the happy moments on social media. We're only talking about the good things in our lives. We're only having conversations about what's new in our life, what's going on. And I think that, like, again, we talk about finding that contentness and we talk about finding that peace and comfort in the mundane. Have those conversations, right? Like, even with my partner, I have those conversations of like, hey, this is what's been going on in between all of the nice highlighted moments in our relationship.
You know what I've seen too, though? So you post all these happy things on social media. And if you're not living that life, you feel bad.
Right.
But then what we do as viewers sometimes, you'll have some people that maybe post those vulnerable moments. You're like, don't post that.
Right.
That's
or
upsetting.
Like, ooh, that was a little much
that was
to
a bit
share
much
on
to
social
share.
media or on the internet. That was a bit much. But like,
it's shaming them.
What,
Even if you're not talking
totally
about
right.
it, you're shaming them. Like you've been conditioned to see the happy, so you only want to see the happy now. And then when they show you what you weren't expecting, you're unhappy with them now for it. Like,
or
that
you're
was
just uncomfortable with it, right? Because we've conditioned ourselves so much as a society to only spend that time in the happy or that chasing of that moment where it's like, ooh, I'm happy. Look at this post. Look where I went. I'm going to post this on Instagram. Look at this new thing I did. Look at this new car I bought, this new house, this new relationship I'm in. It's like...
And it's not necessary. I think this world would benefit a lot from more of these conversations.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this conversation is what Little Pricks podcast is about, honestly. Wow. Like, just take a moment, man, because like we've grown so much, and I'm so excited that we get to share this with so many more people now. But this right here, this conversation that Fareed and I are having, this is what Little Pricks podcast is about.
And that's what we started this for. We realized one day that we have conversations with substance, enough substance that we wonder if other people have these conversations. And I was more surprised to realize from feedback from you guys that it's not as common as we think.
It's not. And
so this is our way of kind of sharing
yeah,
somebody that hopefully you can relate to.
Well, that and just so that you can practice it more too, like so that you can find this place, because it's only through these conversations and this amount of vulnerability and going outside of the norms or like outside of the lines of what people define as happy or successful that we have actually found that we've actually found and existed in more of those moments of happiness.
That's a great way to do it, though. That's a great pause. It's realizing that you can find a lot more of this gratitude by sitting down and having these conversations with close people and loved ones.
Absolutely.
Because that's how we found a lot of that.
Yeah.
I was able to relate to another human being.
Yeah.
Devon here, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would say that our friendship is a lot... it's
tenfold.
Really strong for it, right?
Tenfold, man.
You could say some pretty off-the-wall, terrible things, and I'd be like, all right, bud.
Yeah.
I know it's in your head. It's fine.
Right.
But it comes down to having conversations you can be grateful for, practicing that gratitude, and understanding that dopamine hits are the reason you're happy, and you don't need a dopamine hit all the time.
You don't, and sometimes you'll be surprised to find that inside of these what appear to be not so favorable conversations that are a little more uncomfortable, I've been surprised to find out that that's where I find my happy. You know,
in uncomfortable places,
understanding and honesty and transparency, like in those places where I was like, ooh, I'm really uncomfortable, man, I get I get that knot in my stomach to have these conversations, but then I do it, and then I was surprised to find that like that's where I found my happy. You know,
I think there's another place though that has worked for me. You have taken a very natural approach, and I love that. Right, you've taken, you want to be in your comfort spaces. That's writing, that's being out in nature, that's editing our podcast. That's
my creative outlets.
Your creative outlets. For me, I found that faith. Right, that was a big one for me. Sure. I found faith. Well, I've always had it, not
as strong. You definitely have grown in your faith. I have noticed. Yeah.
I wonder if that's like something that like a gift you're given at 30. You're like, hey, you should be afraid of dying now. Well, I don't know.
Maybe.
Like, here's your ticket. I'm not afraid of the death, but I think it's kind of a funny way to look at it. But in my faith, I've managed to find contentment. I find moments of peace. And I'm going to say moments because everything is, they're moments.
No, that's a big point to make in this episode for sure. I do not want to convey that, like, we made the point in the beginning. Happiness is not a goal. It's not, it's a journey. It's a wave that you ride of.
Here's another nugget for you.
Yeah.
It just came to me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom Hanks, because I saw him say it, right? And it's a great notion. that all of your feelings are moments, right? But what he said was, this too shall pass. Whenever you're in a moment, doesn't matter if it's good or bad, sad,
that's a good one.
happy.
I like that.
Just remember, this too shall pass.
Yep.
So at your lowest point, this too shall
Yeah,
pass.
just relax.
At your highest point, this too shall pass.
Yeah.
Everything is ebbs and flows.
Ebbs and flows. And that very much so touches base and kind of parallels to the statement that we made of like, finding your content space.
But if you're
being
content,
overall satisfied,
you have a baseline that you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
And I think that is a great summarization of all of this.
Oh, of course. Absolutely.
Understand emotions are fleeting. They will come and they will go.
They will come and will go.
It's seeking your place of contentment as your baseline.
Yeah.
If you have that there, you're going to be fine.
And try to set at that baseline in those ebbs and flows. Try not to like be so indulged in those. Like what I do also, my last point I want to make is that I'm an observer of my emotions and my feelings. So I set at this nice level baseline where I'm like overall satisfied and I'm overall content. And I watch this wave of this super huge spike of, oh my gosh, I got to move to Tucson. I got to do this. But I don't ride it so high up there because then there's no like huge come down. And I'm not saying to not feel those nice, happy feelings, but just don't base and try to like bury your foundation of your homestead in that feeling of happiness. Just be an observer and be like, wow, it's a pretty day in the sky right now. And it's really nice and sunny and 75. This is a nice day. But I'm not going to like be upset and completely discontent when it's not sunny and 75. It's still a nice day regardless. You know what I mean?
No, that is the most responsible way you could look at your dopamine hit, right? So, and I think I've done it without realizing I'm doing what you're saying, right? Like for me, I love cruising. I love going on a cruise.
Oh yeah, cruises
are my favorite. I love being on a ship. I love it. Or an airplane. Put me on an airplane. It's like second to Disneyland.
Yeah, like the first time I ever flew in a plane, I got so excited. I'm like, oh, this is so cool.
I'm so happy.
I still do it. I have to obviously contain myself.
And I think what I try to do now is I try to temper it a little bit. Not because I don't want to experience that high, but because I'm responsibly going, I could allow myself to get that dopamine hit to that point. But I don't need it.
Yeah.
I can just bring it just a little higher, enjoy it for what it is. Yeah. I don't have to
enjoy that sunny and 75 day.
110%. I can just enjoy it at a level that's comfortable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then if I really want to, I can just spike it for a minute and come down. Right? Moderation.
Moderation, man, for sure.
Find contentment. Understand that this too shall pass. And don't allow yourself or others to shame you for not being the definition of happy.
Yep.
Be content.
Be content.
That's the key to a good, successful life. Be content. Make decisions that make you feel content.
Yep.
You are the master of your own life.
And no matter where you are in that journey, no matter where you have struggled, where you have succeeded, you are okay and you are enough right now. You do not have to chase this state of being. You don't have to be happy to be enough, to be successful, to be content in life, and do however you need to do to feel like you are overall satisfied with your life.
And you'll have the little pricks by your side to help
all the time
and guide you.
All the time. My name's Devon. This is Fareed. Thank you guys so freaking much for tuning in. We're out of time, but please subscribe. Please email us at littleprickspodcast@gmail.com.
Comment.
littleprickspod@gmail.
Write it down.
Yeah, I'll put it on the screen.
Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share us if you'd be so kind. Clearly, you've been doing that aggressively lately, so thank you.
Thank you guys so much again for that. We crossed 5,000 subscribers on Instagram. Almost about to hit 500 as we speak on YouTube.
Going for the 1,000.
You guys are the freaking best.
We'll see you next time. Adios.
Cheers.